Well, today I'm sharing some awesome recipes we're gonna be making in this one single pan, and that means everything gets mixed, assembled, and baked, so the cleanup is easy. Everyone loves a good dump and bake recipe, and these ones are super delicious. Plus, it's nice to have recipes like this for busy weeknights or when you're kind of lazy and don't want to do a whole bunch at dinner time. These are perfect. Well, if we haven't met before, my name is Ange, welcome, and this is the Menu Made Kitchen. Okay, so this first recipe I'm gonna be sharing with you is Caprese chicken casserole. I love this recipe because it has just a few ingredients. It's very fresh and light. Not your traditional like comfort food casserole or rib stick and dinner. It's just very simple and the ingredients are simple, but it's so delicious. I mean, you really can't go wrong with chicken, pasta, and cheese. I think you're really gonna enjoy this. Okay, so for our Caprese chicken pasta bake, I've got my 9 by 13 inch baking dish. I've sprayed it with cooking spray, and we're gonna add in about a pound of diced up raw chicken. You can actually do cooked chicken, so if you have leftover chicken, this recipe is perfect for that. And then next we're gonna add in a whole can of diced up tomatoes. This is the one with garlic, oregano, and basil, just to add more flavor. And you're gonna want all the juice in there. And then we're gonna add in 3 cups of pasta here. You can do penne pasta, spiral pasta. I really like these shapes. I found these in the bulk section at our grocery store. They're just really fun, but as long as they're about this size. Okay, and then we're gonna add in 1 minced garlic clove. I've got 1/2 teaspoon of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. And then I've got 1/2 cup of fresh basil. I'm only gonna do half of this and then save the rest of it for when it's baked, and we'll sprinkle it over the top. And then I've got some shredded mozzarella cheese. I'm only gonna use about 1.5 cups of this, and then we'll use the other 1/2 cup over the top. After it's finished cooking, we'll sprinkle a little more cheese over the top, bake it for a few more minutes until it's bubbly and golden, and you know, it looks beautiful and appetizing. And then we're gonna add in 3 cups of chicken stock. This is the better than bouillon. You know I love that. That's my favorite. And that is it. I'm gonna stir everything together until it's well combined. And you could obviously add this to a large bowl and stir everything together. But trying to keep this super simple, right? Just kind of a dump and bake recipe. It might be a little bit easier in a bowl, but then I don't have to wash the bowl. All right, that looks pretty good. So I've got my oven set at 425. I'm gonna cover this tightly with foil. We'll put it in the oven and bake it about 40 to 45 minutes. I'm gonna test it, make sure that the pasta's cooked. I know the chicken will be cooked. And if we need to put it back in for a couple more minutes, we can do that. So let's get this in the oven and then we're closer to tasting it. All right, it has been about 45 minutes. Carefully pull this off here. And there's still a little bit of liquid. That's totally fine. I'm gonna stir everything together. And then I'm gonna check my pasta. I'm pretty sure the pasta still needs a little more time. Oops. But it's looking good. Okay, I'm just gonna check one of these pastas here. Actually, that pasta is almost done. So because there's not a lot of liquid in here, I'm gonna go ahead and add the rest of my cheese to the top of this. And then I'm gonna pop it back into the oven for another about 10 minutes, really until the cheese is melted and most of the liquid is evaporated, or it's soaked into the pasta, but there'll still be a little bit of liquid from what the recipe instructions said. So I'm not gonna worry about it too much. All right, back into the oven for 10 minutes, and then I'm gonna top it with some fresh basil, and then we get to taste it. I just got myself a little dish to try, but I did think of something when I was putting this together. I thought, okay, usually Caprese has a little bit of balsamic glaze over the top of it. So I'm gonna try it first without the glaze, but I do have some Nona Pia's balsamic glaze, and if you have not had this before, I mean, you will want to drink it out of the bottle and put it on everything. It is so delicious and thick and rich and a little bit sweet. So I think it would be good over this pasta, but we got to try it without it first. And I will say there is some liquid in the bottom of the pan, but it kind of just sits there after you dish everything up. It's not like it's soupy inside I don't have a bunch of liquid inside the bowl. So just wanted to let you know that. Okay, enough talking. Let's give this a try. That is so simple. Really fresh ingredients. This feels like a healthy meal. Definitely tastes like summer. Has great flavor. I probably would add another garlic clove. And I know that I usually don't do a lot of garlic, but a little more garlic in here. But the saltiness is perfect. The chicken is cooked perfectly along with the pasta. And I love those canned tomatoes in there. Give it some richness. Okay. A little bit of balsamic glaze. Just a little drizzle. I will definitely put that in the recipe instructions. It's optional, but I think it's a cherry on the top for sure. This is a great recipe, super easy to throw together. It's healthy, it's delicious. So I've sprayed my 9x13" baking dish with nonstick cooking spray, and I'm gonna add in 10 large eggs. I've got 3/4 cup of milk. We're gonna add in 1 can of black beans rinsed and drained, kind of a classic side to serve with Huevos Rancheros, so I think that'll be really good. And then for our spices, we've got 1 teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, 1½ teaspoons of oregano. We've got a 1/2 teaspoon of chili powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper, 1½ teaspoons of chili powder, or cumin, I'm sorry, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. You definitely want this to be well seasoned. We want those Mexican spices in there. And then I've got 2 cups of Mexican cheese here. I just bought a package at the grocery store to make it super simple. I'm gonna add some of it to the casserole and then we'll reserve some of it for the top. So I'm gonna crack all my eggs, get my milk in here and some of the other ingredients, and then we'll move on to the next step. We are going to be adding a not so traditional ingredient for Huevos Rancheros. I'm going to use these golden crispy crowns. You can also do tater tots, but I found these and they're a little bit, they're about half the size of a tater tot actually. Oops, there we are. So they're a little bit flatter. So typically you would do like corn tortillas, you would serve that as your carb with the Huevos, but we're going to do these and I think it's going to be really good. I'm going to add this entire 30-ounce package here to my egg mixture. Just dump it in there, and then I'll just use my spatula to kind of make sure it's in a nice single layer. And then press your little potatoes down into the egg mixture a little bit, and the egg mixture will obviously bake and fluff up and cook a little bit over the potatoes, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, that is it for this step. We are going to pop this in the 375-degree oven. I don't need to cover it. I'm going to cook it about 35 to 40 minutes. We'll check it and make sure that the egg is set, and then we'll add a little more cheese to the top, pop it back in the oven to melt the cheese, and then we get to taste it. I am super excited to try this. My husband's usually the one who orders like Huevos Rancheros when we go out to breakfast or something like that. So I think he's really gonna enjoy this recipe. You definitely have to have like the salsa, that's traditional with that kind of recipe. And then I added a little bit of sour cream. I also did some fresh cilantro. It's cooked perfectly. Check that out. It looks so good. The flavors in here are perfect. It's seasoned really well. It's kind of nice to have the black beans in there just for extra like body because there's no meat. This is absolutely delicious. I know that my family's gonna love this. I think you're really gonna enjoy kind of this twist on Huevos Rancheros in a casserole form. So, so delicious. For our pork chop and rice bake, most of the recipes that I found online used like cream of mushroom or cream of chicken soup, but I didn't want to do that. So I'm going to do 1.25 cups of full fat sour cream. I'm pretty sure you could probably do this with Greek yogurt too, just to add like some extra protein and nutrition, but I'm going to do sour cream. Okay, and then I have 2 cups of beef stock. This is the Better Than Bouillon beef stock. I just think it has so much flavor. All right, and because we're not using cream of mushroom soup, I have to add my own seasonings. I have not tried this yet. It's Trader Joe's multi-purpose umami seasoning blend. So if we were using the cream of mushroom soup, you kind of have that earthy flavor. So I think I'm going to do a teaspoon of this seasoning blend, and it smells so good. It's definitely very earthy, but it has other spices like garlic and onion powder. And I'm also going to use from Trader Joe's this onion salt. My best friend told me about both of these seasonings and she said they were awesome. So I'm going to do just a half a teaspoon of the onion salt. I don't want to get too crazy with it because there's already a lot of sodium in the beef stock. All right, before we add the rice, I'm gonna go ahead and whisk all of this together just to combine it. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but I did spray my pan with nonstick cooking spray. All right, that looks perfect. So now we're gonna add in 1 cup of long grain white rice. So simple. I feel like this is just such a simple dump and bake recipe, but I think it's going to be a hit with my family. And then next we're going to add in our pork chops. I have boneless pork chops here. They're about a 1/2 inch thick, so you definitely want some thick pork chops for this because we are going to be baking this in the oven for quite some time. And if your pork chops are too thin, the rice isn't going to cook in time and the pork chops will be done, and you know how that goes. You can definitely do bone-in pork chops. My family just likes the boneless, so that's why I'm using these. And we're just going to lay them kind of in a single row here, if I can fit them all. Hopefully. Maybe I'll have to like stagger them a little bit. All right, so let's do it this way. Because you know, I'm all about how things look. Pull that guy over there. There we go. Perfect. All right, and then the last thing that we need to do is we're going to add on some onion soup mix over the top of the pork chops to season that. You can do Lipton onion soup mix. I just happen to have a homemade version that my best friend made me. So probably you would want to use not quite a full packet of the onion soup mix. You just really want to coat the top of the pork chops with the seasoning. But I feel like the entire packet of the soup mix would be too strong and probably too salty. All right, that looks pretty good. All right, so that is it. The only thing left to do is I'm going to cover this tightly with foil. We're going to pop it into our oven at 350 and we're going to bake it about an hour. I'm going to take a peek at it to see where the rice and the pork chops are with doneness. So we'll just kind of gauge if we need to go a little bit longer. Okay, so I pulled this out of the oven. It went for 1 hour and 20 minutes. I did a little bit of testing right here to make sure that the rice was done. I know my pork chops are done. So I'm gonna actually take my pork chops out and we're gonna put them over here on this pie dish. You guys, it just smells so wonderful in here. I'm so excited about this. I also have about a 1/2 cup of parsley. I'm just gonna add most of it and then we'll sprinkle the rest over the top of the pork chops. This just adds a little bit of freshness, but really color. Just want to take the fork here and I'm just going to fluff the rice together, mix everything until it's combined. Okay, that looks perfect. And the texture of this rice isn't supposed to be like light and fluffy. It's more like a creamy, kind of like risotto. It has that kind of texture. So if you're thinking fluffy rice, this is not how this comes out, which I think is just going to be even more cozy and delicious. All right, I forgot to push record when I put my pork chops back in. And then, like I said, I'm just going to add a little bit of greenery over the top. I feel like it makes it look more appetizing. Because sometimes, you know, pork chops, they just don't really look all that pretty. It's kind of just a dull brown meat. I don't know what it is. Especially since we're not browning the meat, this just adds a little pop of color. Okay, that is finished. We are ready to taste this. All right, I just sliced up a little bit of my pork chop so we could try this. And when I cut into the pork chop, it was perfectly cooked. So that 1 hour and 20 minutes with a thick cut pork chop that's boneless I think it's the perfect doneness for me. So we'll get a little bit of rice, a little bit of pork chop. Oop. Okay, here we go. Those seasonings in the rice, the umami and then the onion salt. My best friend, Megs, you were so right. It is delicious. It definitely has that just warm, cozy, earthy kind of flavor, very savory, almost like French onion soup mix. And even though we have like the onion soup mix over the top of the pork chop. Where the flavor's at is in the rice. I mean, the pork is great, it's tender, gives the meal some protein, but that rice flavor, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like an amazing dump and bake meal. So good and simple ingredients. This is definitely a keeper. All right, so for our chicken enchilada casserole, we're gonna use an 8x8" baking dish. So it's gonna be a little bit less, but it will still serve probably 4 or 5 people. So we gotta start with rice. Everything is gonna get mixed into this dish, making it super easy. I'm using Uncle Ben's whole grain rice just to make this a little bit healthier, but you can certainly use any kind of cooked rice, but you definitely wanna make sure that the rice is cooked. Now I'm gonna do about a cup or so. It's almost this entire package. And then we're gonna do 2 cups of cooked chicken. You can do rotisserie chicken from the grocery store. That would make it really easy. I threw this in the oven and roasted it at 350 for 30 minutes. 2 breasts, and then just chopped it up and you had cooked chicken. I'm also gonna do a half a cup of frozen corn. Again, you can use canned corn. You could even do fresh corn since that's in season right now. I'm also gonna do a whole can of rinsed and drained black beans. And then we've got some spices. Obviously, this is where a lot of the flavor comes in. We've got a half a teaspoon of cumin, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, a half a teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of oregano, a half a teaspoon of chili powder, and a half a teaspoon of black pepper. And then for that enchilada flavor, I'm gonna use a 10-ounce can of mild enchilada sauce. And then we've got 1 cup of shredded cheddar cheese. Monterey Jack would be really good, or even pepper jack for a little bit of spice. I'm only gonna do about a half a cup in the casserole now, and then we'll add the rest on top. All right, and that is it. I'm gonna mix everything together. Might get a little bit messy in this small dish, but I really don't wanna have to dirty extra dishes. I've been loving these 1-pan meals to put together. It's just made mealtime so much quicker. Way less to have to clean up after dinner or breakfast. This is looking really good. The only thing left to do is I need to add the rest of this cheese over the top. So I have my oven set at 375. I'm gonna pop this in there uncovered, and we're gonna bake it about 15 to 20 minutes, probably more like 20 minutes, until the cheese is bubbly on top and everything is heated through. I'm also gonna get some really simple toppings ready. I'm gonna chop up some tomatoes. I've got some avocado and cilantro. We have some sour cream. Really keep it simple, but everyone can kind of add their own stuff. I think it's gonna be so yummy. Okay, this smells so delicious. I love like those enchilada flavors. Okay, so I added avocado, little sour cream, cilantro. Let's give it a try. That is so packed with flavor. I mean, how simple. You saw like a few ingredients into a pan. This is delicious. I am really excited to have another casserole idea that's got like bomb flavor, so easy, bakes in 20 minutes. I mean, it doesn't get any easier than that. Okay, before I take another bite, I really wanted to try this with, I have a bag of the Trader Joe's, like they're basically like Fritos, only their corn chips, they're a little more tender. Like they're still crunchy, but they just kind of have a more tender crispness to them. I think that they're gonna be really good dipped with this casserole. Kind of gives it, it'll give it like a corn flavor. Okay. Oh yeah. I think this needs a little fresh lime juice and it'll be perfection. This is so good. You're gonna love this one. Well, I hope you found some inspiration today for these 1-pan kind of dump and bake recipes. You'll have to let me know which ones you're gonna try first. And don't forget, all of the recipe links can be found in the descriptions. And if you're new here, I'd love for you to be part of my YouTube family, so make sure to subscribe. And I hope you have a really blessed week, and we will see you next time.